Greetings, everybody, once again, and welcome to another Transformation Tuesday interview. My name is John Bauer. I am with Bauer Power Fitness Consulting. I am happy to be here on behalf of Defining Dadbod for another fantastic transformation interview. And this is kind of a fun one for me. Today, I have the opportunity to interview somebody that has kind of passed in and out of my circle of acquaintances over the last year, but this is the first time that we've actually talked. And it's kind of a big deal for me because I'm just this Midwestern lawyer in a real life, but I get to talk to a real life author. So this is kind of exciting for me. But Warren Peterson, I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for taking time this evening to talk with us. And as I mentioned, you are an author. You have written several books. One of those books was one of the first books that I read as we started to kind of hang out in the same circles, and that's Becoming a Significant Man. Very, very impacting book for me. It was great to read, and it's very effective to me as to where I've gotten to today. And one of those books I would highly recommend to anybody watching this. And I would say not only to men watching this, I would say if you're a woman who is married or has a significant other in your life, that it is worth reading as well, just to kind of get a little insight into the mind of many men. And on top of that, you have a brand new book coming out. And I think probably by the time this interview plays, that it will be out. And that is, I believe, if the title is correct, Jesus Man to Man. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's coming out actually this week.
Okay.
We're recording it week of Thanksgiving, so yeah, it'll be out for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so very exciting, and congratulations on that. I know that
Thank
it's
you.
exciting for you to put a second book together and keep moving down that road. But we're here tonight to talk about a very different aspect. And for anyone who has known you for really any length of time, I know in the last year or so, you have gone through quite a physical transformation. Is that correct?
Yeah, it has been. It's interesting that whenever we meet people, I'm going a little side tangent. Whenever we
Sure.
meet people, it's the beginning of our story together, right? It's the beginning of when we meet. So it's kind of like chapter one for all of us. Anytime when you and I first met, that's the beginning of our relationship. It's the beginning of our friendship. But we all have a story, that starts the beginning of our life. So for me, from a weight loss standpoint, I've been on this track for quite a long time, but only recently been sort of sharing it and making it public.
Okay.
When I first started talking to other men about what I'm doing and where I'm at, I weighed about 265.
Okay.
My heaviest though, I was just under 320. I weighed 317.6. That was the highest I was. I remember it exactly. At least with the scale that we had, it was 317.6. So that's where I was when I started. When I began tracking it and sharing what I'm doing with different guys online, I was at 265. We happen to be recording this on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday is when I share my current progress. As of right now, I'm at 232. And have gone a long way, but I have a ways to go still. But so yeah, that's where I started, was at 317. Just over 80 pounds down from where I began.
That's fantastic, and that is an
Thanks.
incredible accomplishment. And having done similar myself, I know the discipline and the commitment that something like that takes. It's not something that you can take lightly. And I guess kind of with what you say, I really want to start at chapter one of your story. And I'd love to go back, because every story that starts at that high point has got some background to it, both not only physical background, but mental and often emotional background. I would love for you just to kind of share maybe your early chapters as far as youth, childhood, young adulthood, as far as kind of how your physical journey over that period of time went.
Yeah, sure. So as a kid, I was pretty active, like I think most kids. Although today I'm not. I wouldn't say the same thing.
Yeah.
But grew up being pretty physically active. I was in scouts, canoeing, all the stuff that you would do there. And when I was in high school, I played basketball, not with the school, but I played intramural basketball and with the guys, away from school. Same thing, played intramural football. Basketball was my big love, though. I'm only 6'1", which is short, right, to play basketball. But I love the game. I know the game really well. I could play the game pretty well for being a high school kid. Played a lot of basketball. Had a pretty bad knee injury, and then another knee injury, and another knee injury, and finally got the message that I'm pretty much done with basketball. So I have dislocated both knees, and then in my right knee tore ACL and MCL, and in my left knee I have a partial MCL tear that we never repaired because I was done playing basketball at that point. And then after that, I was in my early 20s and was working at the time at Taco Bell. And at Taco Bell, one of the perks, if you want to call it that, is your unlimited drinks. We had to pay for our food, but we didn't have to pay for anything to drink. So I would have a Dr. Pepper sitting there on the counter next to me all day long. And after I worked there for about 6 or 7 months, I realized I'm starting to get fat. And I'm like, I'm eating the same. I've never actually eaten a lot even for being a big guy. I never ate a lot. And then I realized what it was. Is I was drinking the equivalent of about 3 or 4 gallons of Dr. Pepper every day.
Wow.
And when you start to do the math on those calories, you're like, well, yeah, you're going to balloon up, pretty fast. So that's where it began for me from a struggle from a weight standpoint. I was never a skinny kid, but was always perfectly fine in shape. Like I said, playing basketball, playing football,
Right.
ultimate frisbee, run around, all do that kind of stuff. But that's what really got me was soda and drinking soda all the time. And that was a habit that even to this day, I still drink soda, but I've had to change and alter what I drink. And that's the one thing that I'm still working on. Although right now I drink mostly like Diet Sprite or Diet Root Beer, something that has no caffeine and no calories. And I know we could debate the aspartame versus sugar sort of thing, but the big one for me was cutting out caffeine in my drinks. It'll be 2 years on January 1st. I haven't had any caffeine at all, other than what might naturally occur with chocolate or things like that, where there's a little bit in there, from a fractional standpoint, because I was drinking Diet Mountain Dew. So I had switched myself over to Diet Mountain Dew, thinking somehow that's better for me. And same thing, I would have a gallon of Diet Mountain Dew in a day. And then it got to the point where my heart was starting to have problems, and I was finally figured that out. It was because of the caffeine, right? Because I could drink 32 ounces of Diet Mountain Dew right before bed and just go to sleep. I had so much caffeine in me all the time that it had no impact on me from staying awake or alert or anything like that. Even to the point where, like, if I got a headache and the doctor would give me anything that was sort of on the caffeinated side or Tylenol or anything like that, it didn't even have any impact. But then I was getting like heart flutters and things like that, and finally realized it's the caffeine. So cut that out entirely. I do still drink pop more than I should. I'm very aware of that. But as of right now, it's no calories and no caffeine. So as we're making steps along the journey, those are some of the steps for me. So I know that ended up a long story from
No.
childhood, but it's closer to kind of where I am today and some of the specific health related things along the way.
Okay, and you've brought up both, so we've got to have this. I've never had this debate, and I never thought I'd have this debate on a transformation podcast. But is it soda or is it pop? Because you called it both in the last narrative. You've called it both, so I want to know which you say it is.
I call it both, and I don't. Okay. I grew up in Chicago, and it was both. I know, at least for me in my circle, living out here in Colorado now, it's more soda out here than pop. But yeah, if we lived in Atlanta or if we lived elsewhere, I guess we would have to call it Dr. Pepper, or we'd have to call it Coke. We'd have to call it whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I go back. I kind of go back and forth on that. I don't have any religious battle to fight on that.
And I'm from Northern Illinois also, and it was pop all of my life. And then
Okay. Yeah.
when I moved to St. Louis, I went into the headlong argument in defending that it was pop because it's soda in St. Louis, Missouri. So now,
Okay.
and I stumble and probably call it
Yeah.
soda every once in a while too. But and it's interesting because and you're in the discussion though is really interesting because that was one of the things when I lost a lot of weight about 5 years ago. That was one of the things that I gave up. I went cold turkey. Mine was Coke Zero. So it was already the diet. It was already the 0 calorie. And I bought into the whole thing of, well, it's diet. It can't be, doing anything as far as the weight loss. I gave it up and I dropped 60 pounds in 6 months. Have you, I mean, what do you read? What do you believe about it? I mean, what have you decided? I mean, obviously you've been able to manage it well because you've lost a lot of weight, but at the same time dealt with it. It's one of those things where I'm curious to know kind of your thoughts if you've done any research or if you've done any perspectives, especially on the diet versus regular or anything like that.
Yeah. So for me, there was two parts, and now there's one part. The two parts were a caffeine addiction, which that I've been able to cut, and that was hard. Um, there were several days right there where I had sweats, I had headaches. It was pretty horrible. I had no idea that would be something that I would get to learn in my life, but I got to learn it.
Hmm.
And the other part though is I actually have a physical addiction of a can in my hand all the time. And so for me, that particular aspect I have not been able to cut yet. So for me, there's a habit, the habit slash addiction of having a drink all the time. I only drink two things. I drink water and I drink diet sodas. Um, I don't drink any beer, no alcohol, not I just don't like it, like no particular reason. I mean, I'll have a sip of
Right.
wine or something like that or something, champagne and New Year's and things, but I don't particularly care for the taste of it at all. So the aspect of having the sort of chemical side of addiction of caffeine, and then the I don't know what you call the other side, but the sort of habitual addiction of having to have something there all the time. That particular piece I still have there. From a research standpoint, I would say it's similar to somebody who is very aware of the dangers of smoking. I know that the diet soda is bad for me. There's nothing else to read about. I'm very clear on what it is, what aspartame specifically can do in your body when you consume large amounts of it over time. So, I'm research-wise, I know, right? It's very clear. But that habit of having something to drink all the time is still there. I have tried different seltzer waters and things like that, but I can't handle them. They taste horrible. And so from a flavor standpoint, which is usually what it is,
Right.
that's been a bit of a challenge. I just can't handle those to drink because so I've been working on what are the alternatives.
Right.
Same tea, different people have suggested doing different teas over the years. But same thing, I don't like, I can't stand their taste. So for me, it would probably have to be a true cold turkey and drink water for the rest of my life. But I gotta be honest, I don't know if I have the ability to do it. Like if I'm having a bad day and I have to stop at the gas station to get gas, I have to consciously not go in and get a
Wow.
Diet Dew. I have to consciously not go get a Dr. Pepper or a Coke. So even now, I haven't had a Coke or a regular Dr. Pepper in, I don't know, 5 years, but I
Wow.
still feel it when I go to the gas station or where it's freely available.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Diet Mountain Dew. That was like a go-to release, and so you had all those things working there. So for me, it's got to be an all or nothing. I've had people tell me, well, you don't have the caffeine problem anymore. You could just have a Diet Mountain Dew, and I can't. I kind of treat it similar, and I mean zero offense to people who actually are going through this, because I'm using it as an example, not comparing the two. But like an alcoholic can't go have a little bit of a drink later, right?
Right.
So I can't go have a little bit of Diet Mountain Dew because I'll just end up having a gallon of it the next day, because I'm like, why not? I just had a little bit, I'll have a little more. So, from that aspect, it's been a challenge for sure. So I can't tell yet though if I feel good about going to the fact that it's just diet Sprite or diet root beer. Kind of I'm not deluding myself and saying somehow that's good,
Right.
but it's the path that where I am right now. It's better than where I was, but that doesn't mean that it's good.
Yeah, no, but it's about 15 steps in the right direction, no matter what you're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's great. How long and so the soda part of it or the pop part of it, whichever we want to call it, that obviously was a big, huge player in all of this. Was food ever a player in all of this as you gained your weight in in your early 20s?
Not too much, no. Um, not really. There's a couple things, and there's still challenges for me today. Pizza, good pizza from Chicago, not the floppy stuff in New York, but real Chicago pizza. That's a challenge. Thankfully, we don't actually have it out here in Colorado, but you can ship it here, which my wife has done for my birthday. So good Chicago pizza is a challenge because 2 slices of that's your calories for the day,
Yeah,
or
at least.
or
Yeah.
more, yeah, or more. So that's a challenge. Snacking for me, maybe like potato chips, that kind of thing. I don't really have a sweet tooth, probably because of the sweetness being addressed by the soda that I drink. But I don't care about desserts or candy or cookies, ice cream. None of that means nothing. I could give that up forever and it wouldn't even be a challenge. But the snacky side of it, chips and that sort of thing, that's a bit more of a challenge. So, I've switched over to things like baked Cheetos and baked Lay's, potato chips and things like that. And we'll have like, cucumbers and hummus and stuff like that as most of my snacks. So the food side really isn't too much of a challenge. Lunches were a little bit of a challenge. Um, but I do kind of a tuna lunch thing almost every day now and have that pretty much nailed down. I'm a very habitual person,
Mhm.
so I can eat the same thing every day forever and it wouldn't bug me. So my tuna lunch has helped quite a bit. And but from a food standpoint, really wasn't too much. I don't binge eat. I don't do the whole I'm feeling depressed, so I'm gonna have a gallon of ice cream. It really was primarily soda. I mean, I was having 4, 5, 6,000 calories a day sometimes of soda. So that took its toll. I'm still
Yeah.
working it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did and also talking a little bit back about the knee problems and things like that. Was that hard for you to stop being active?
Yeah, it was. And one of the things on the sort of fitness side, not necessarily nutrition or things, but when I was about 20, I'm getting a little older now, so the years blend together when you go back. But I think it was about 20. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which was really weird for that particular age. You can get juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when you're younger normally,
Mhm.
single digit age, for example. So to be at about 20 was a weird time for that. And it took a while to figure out what it was because all my joints were swelling up but we finally figured out that's what it was. So that still causes problems. It will be forever, but I kind of work and manage that. So all those things sort of started to happen at the same time. So I had knee problems, had this arthritis thing come up out of nowhere, which was kind of weird and surreal. So physically, within a period of a handful of years there, I kind of got pretty beat up, where to the point where the arthritis was so bad that I could barely walk. Going up and down stairs was almost impossible. I actually had to sit on every stair and then sit one stair up and sit one stair because
Oh.
I couldn't have that weight on my knees and ankles to walk upstairs the normal way that you do. So yeah, it was a pretty bizarre couple years there.
And how old were you when this was again?
It was about 20. It was
Wow.
19 or 20. It was right around the same time when my knees were starting to have problems. And so we were trying to figure out what's the deal. And although arthritis and ligament tears have nothing to do with one another.
Right.
The doctor was thinking that perhaps because I had this swelling everywhere, my hips and everywhere, that I was overcompensating, kind of on the
Hmm.
wrong angles, or putting stress on the joints in the incorrect way. So obviously it wasn't arthritis equals MCL tear.
Right.
But
Right.
that was one of the thoughts, is that, since my hips were hurting, maybe I was turning the wrong way to kind of counteract that pain that was in the hips and ankles and so on.
Okay. And at what age were you when you really kind of peaked out? You said you hit about 320, 317, 320. How old were you when you hit that?
Oh gosh, I was probably 40 or 42.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was just a steady progression through your 20s and
Yeah, it
30s.
was. Yeah, yeah. Yep, yep. It kicked off. It kicked off in my 20s, drinking pop, and it wasn't really till I was in my early 40s there, when I, when I sort of could step back and see in photos and things like that. I'm like, wow, that's me. Because
Yeah.
if you've been there, for everybody else who's been there, when you look at the photos for a while, it's not you, right?
Yeah.
You don't really see you the same way other people see you.
Right.
So it took a little while for me to have that, and see those photos and kind of step back and go, wow.
Do you remember a specific time or anything like that really hit you?
um I don't think so. Just looking at it, just looking at some photos, like, there wasn't one particular one that stands out, or a particular moment like that. No, it was just me looking at it going, wow, that's too fat, you better do something about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having that moment, what were kind of the first things? I mean, obviously the pop was the big one. What else was there as far as an assessment thinking, I got to do something about this?
Just introspection.
Yeah.
I like to think through things, right? And I went through a period of time there where I kind of ended up losing everything, losing, business, house, and everything, and stepped back and look at my life and said, okay, it's going to take some time to rebuild everything else, but I can control my health and fitness starting today, starting right now. And that was a couple years ago, not super long ago. That was probably maybe 3 years ago, when I was starting to look at things like that, and said, I got to recover and get back on the right path, and so on. And health was the one thing that no matter how everything else in the world was going, I could control what I ate, I could control what I drank, I could control if I was walking or not. Those sorts of things were immediately able to be controlled. So that's what I started to focus on.
Okay. And so 320, what steps do you take besides the pop to start turning things around?
Just being conscious. Like, I didn't have a particular plan or anything like that. Just cutting out the extra calories. Doing it almost all through diet, because I do have some restrictions on me on the physical side.
Right.
I can't run, for example. Running isn't even an option for me. So, like, I have an exercise bike. I like riding the bike. So the bike is fine, but I can't run. I can't really lift. I can't do a lot of those things. I've got a heavy bag that I like beating on from time to time, but I actually have to load myself up on ibuprofen before and after when I'm gonna do that. But that's pretty fun. That's enjoyable. So it was mostly slow, gradual steps. I didn't want to do the whole roller coaster thing and go over the top, and then gain all of it back, or plus, or whatever, that I've heard from so many people, and then do it again and again. So it was primarily just that slow incremental steps, cutting out the pop. Making sure that I didn't have an entire pizza. If we ordered a pizza, making sure that if we did have potato chips, I didn't have all of them. So it was a lot on just self-discipline. I know that sometimes, from a fitness or health standpoint, I don't know if that's a dirty word or not, but it's reality, at least for me.
Yeah. No.
Going through the self-discipline and saying, okay, I just don't have to have that. I'm not going to eat that. Just being very conscious and intentional about every step of the way. Everything that I was doing. Same thing right now. As I've been as I've been tracking this online with guys, and people are asking me, what are you doing? I'm just calorie counting and tracking what I'm doing every day. I walk about 5,000 steps a day, which isn't giant, but that's the sort of fitness level for where I am right now. I still have weird heart things from time to time that haven't been cleared up from the doctors. So, even if I wanted to, even if I could, I would not be allowed to go running right now, for example. So, limiting my calories at the moment, I limit my calories to approximately 1,600 a day because I'm not doing any sort of big physical activity other than walking about 5,000 steps a day. So between those two, it's kind of just math. So I'm letting it work its way like that from a calorie deficit standpoint, and from walking every day, and I will keep doing that for a while.
It sounds like you had a really good perspective and were able to look at it in the small increments. And I think and I'm curious to ask you about that, because a lot of people, you set the goals of, I'm going to lose 60 pounds. I've got to lose, a lot of weight. I'm way overweight and things like that. It sounds like for you though, it was really easy to look at it step by step, little bit by little bit, and take kind of that piece by piece approach. Is that the case?
Yeah, and in a big part because I teach that stuff. I teach goals, and I teach goal setting, and I teach goal achieving, right? I'm more interested in achieving a goal than setting a goal. And for almost everybody, achieving any goal anywhere on earth, that's how you do it, right? The the vision can draw you, right? It can pull you towards that end that you're after, but you get there one step at a time. And it doesn't matter if we're talking if we're talking weight loss, or if we're talking increase your income, or we're talking anything, right? The way you get there is one step at a time. You don't jump all the way there. So because of that, because I have that mindset from teaching that to so many people, it's kind of doctor heal thyself, right? I'm going to take my own medicine, my own prescription on that standpoint, and do the exact same thing that I would tell somebody else if he came to me and said, I'm trying to do this, what do I do? I'm like, this is what you do. It's one day, it's one choice, one decision. You can't lose all 80 pounds tomorrow. So,
Right.
do it one day at a time.
Right. And you said earlier that over the last, I guess it's a year or so, that you have kind of gone more public or accountable with your weight loss. What
Uh-huh.
what was the reason that you chose that change? I mean, how far down were you when you decided to make that shift mentally, I guess is
Um,
what to say.
sure. Yeah, I started doing that when I was at 265. So that's when I started sharing that. It's just working with some other men who had some goals and some things they were wanting to achieve, and I decided to just do the lead by example thing and say, this is what I'm doing, and I will tell you about it every single week. So I'm hopefully doing that mostly to inspire other guys, or to give them the ability to go out and do the same on their own. Because I'm like, that's where I was saying that we join right here, but we have a story before when we join, right? So it's
Right.
chapter one for us, but for me, I was already on the way, right? So it wasn't sort of a big splash kickoff, and using it as a tool to get me where I was going.
Hmm.
Because I'm going where I'm going, right? Whether I post those things or share those things publicly or not. But I'm hoping that other people will look at that and go, you know what, it is possible, right? I can do it. Even for the other guys out there, or other people, other women that are checking this out, who might have exercise restrictions like I currently do, you can still lose weight, right? You can still do it. You just have to be sort of conscious about what you're doing. So I'm hoping that other people who are following that along and keeping track of that can sort of take notice of that and do the same thing, and realize, yeah, I can do that. I can do that today. I can do that tomorrow. I can do it for a week. I can do it for 2 weeks. So that was really the catalyst behind it, was just to share that. And with other guys, when I talk about goals, or talk about just improving yourself as a man, or improving yourself in life, I'm wanting to set examples for them. I'm wanting to show that I follow through on these things in every aspect where we talk about them. So it's all, for me personally, it was for those sorts of things.
Has doing it in a public way, has it made it, has it put more pressure on you? Have you felt more pressure doing it that way? Has it felt easier for you that way? How has it changed for you in the two ways?
Um, the only thing that it's really changed for me is I'm tracking my numbers more closely. So I wasn't a super numbers guy before. I was
Okay.
mostly like, hey, my shirt fits better. Cool. That's the path I want to be on. Or my belt, I just went down a notch. That's cool. I was kind of tracking it like that. I wasn't really a scale guy. I wasn't
Right.
really a numbers guy per se, because I don't know, and you would know this better than me. I don't know if that's necessarily good, right? To be looking at the scale all the time.
Right.
But in order for me to post exactly how things are going, I've got to have the data to share it.
Right.
So I
Right.
find myself much more aware of the scale all the time. And I wasn't that way before. I was
Hmm.
much more just how do I feel? How do I feel my clothes are fitting? That kind of thing. So I'm much more aware of it from a numbers standpoint than I was before.
How does that, I mean, does that make it harder for you? I mean, I know that I've done both ways. I've done periods of times where I've watched it real closely. I've done periods of times where I haven't. People have told me watch it closely. People have told me don't watch it closely. It needs to be about how you fit and or how your clothes fit and how you feel.
Yeah.
Has it been harder for you in tracking those numbers? And I guess the question is too, have you had a week where it's gone up, and how has that impacted you versus my clothes just fit better?
Yeah. So it was really weird at the beginning, because for the first couple weeks there, primarily just because of the scale, and also because although my family and my friends knew I was overweight, nobody knew the number.
Right.
Only I
Right.
knew the actual number.
Yeah.
And and even right now, when I tell people what I weigh, they usually are surprised because I'm a very dense guy. Not dense in that
That's this way. Yeah.
dense in the other way. So like
Yeah.
even when I was in shape in high school and we would go to carnivals and stuff, I would win the prize where they're guessing your weight all the time. So when I would meet people, right when I was starting this, and I would say I weighed 265, they're like, really? Like, we know you're heavy, but it didn't seem like that. Or even
Yeah.
when I was at my at my peak, just under 320, a lot of people, although I look at the pickers, I'm like, yeah, that's obviously a dude who weighs 320 pounds. But yeah, so that was weird, was to actually write the number down. So that was a little strange right at the beginning to say, this is how much I weigh. Um, I haven't had a week where it's gone up. I had my birthday a little while back, and had the birthday parties and all that sort of stuff, and was able to go through that week. My goal here for our Thanksgiving week is the same, to go through this particular week and have a loss, which is going to be interesting because my two oldest kids are home from college, so we've got a lot of dinners planned and lunches and brunches and meals. We have a lot planned. But I'm very aware of my calorie count. So, I intend on still losing weight this week, even though there's going to be good food around me all day, every day. Um, so from that aspect, I think it's probably helped. So it was really weird at the beginning, but it's probably helped just because I know, okay, I'm going to share this on Tuesday, and I don't want it to go up. So it's probably a little bit more extra motivating on there. That was not ever a reason why, but as I'm thinking, just even right now, as I'm thinking about it, as you're asking, it probably is an extra motivator, an extra help to have that. To again, I want to show guys, you know what, you can go through your Thanksgiving week and lose weight that week. It's possible. So you know,
And you know what? Let me ask you this question. And this is a question I hadn't thought about asking before, but I mean, we're in Thanksgiving week. Everybody knows what the next 5 weeks of the calendar holds. It holds a whole bunch of parties. It holds the brunches. It holds the dinners. It holds, sitting around and plates of crap, basically,
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
How are you, as someone who wants that number to go down and going to track it down every week? How are you going to deal with that? I mean, do you have a plan, or is that something you're just like, okay, I'm going to take it week by week? How are you going to deal with that?
Um, so for me, since I am a calorie counter right now, as long as I know what we're doing today, or what we're
Hmm.
doing tomorrow, or where we're going, I'm pretty good at planning for it. So, my wife and I, we still go out to restaurants, go out with the family, all that sort of stuff. But if I know, for example, that we're going to go out to a certain restaurant for dinner, I'll actually look up their menu online and figure out, okay, this is what I'm going to eat when I get there. And if it happens to be some place that only has high calorie food, I'll pretty restrict myself earlier in the day. I'll be pretty low on my calories for lunch. I'll be pretty low on breakfast, although I don't eat a big breakfast, so that's kind of easy. But I will for me. But I will calorie restrict during the day, knowing what the meal is going to be for the evening. And yeah, this is a tough period of time because we have in our family, we obviously have Christmas and New Year's coming up. We also have 5 birthdays between
Oh,
now
wow.
and New Year's, right? So
Oh,
we've got a lot going on in our family over this time. But that will be the particular angle that I take. Um, Same thing as what I've done before. And again, though, since the sweets are not a challenge for me,
yeah.
the whole birthday cakes and birthday celebrations and stuff like that are very easy for me to fortunately for me to not have a challenge with. So if I just know the meal and know what the meal is going to be, then I can plan around that accordingly. That does take a little bit of work, right? So for people that are wanting to do that, yeah, you have to plan ahead a little bit. You have to kind of know where you're going. The hardest part has been if I don't know we're going somewhere and I eat sort of normal throughout the day and then find out at the last minute, oh, we're going out to dinner and it's an Italian place, or it's a place that
Right.
that naturally has a little bit higher calories or that sort of thing, and then that can be a little bit of a challenge. But when I've been in those situations, I just eat sort of a more human portion instead of an American portion, and so I'll have the meal that I want, but I will eat the amount that is correct, and
Yeah.
then sort of push it away and get it boxed up. And I've had to do that twice, and I will actually ask the waitress for a box the first time she comes back to the table, so that it's not sitting there in my face the whole dinner. And I don't care if I box it up. I don't care if other people are still eating. I'm done. But I have found that to be helpful, to box it up and get it out of my face.
That's a really interesting. I've never thought of doing that, but that's a great idea. Is when you get your food, just give me the box right now, and and take care of it then.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Um, in adjusting with all of that, has it been the snack stuff that has been the hardest thing to maintain the discipline on, or is there something else that's been hard to? And I mean, is there something you have just had to give up? I mean, for me, and I tell this story a lot. For me, when I started, it was goldfish because yeah, because and this goes for any parent, so it's not a surprise story. Goldfish, nobody in the world eats a serving size of
Yeah.
goldfish. That
Yeah.
doesn't exist. Whatever they put on the carton is a lie, and they
Yeah.
they know it. And so when I started losing weight, I told my wife, I'm like, this stuff is like crack. And I don't, and I use that jokingly, but it is. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just, and I walked away from goldfish 15 years ago, and I've never had one since. And because I know, putting one in my mouth, the next thing I know, I'd have 15 or 20 in the next
Yeah.
handful.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that is the biggest challenge for me, but I still eat it because I can't not eat it, is homemade popcorn. My
Oh,
my hobby in life, away obviously from my family and so on, is I have a great home theater and I love movies, and
right.
that's my sort of getaway and escape from the world. And so for me, I would make homemade popcorn on the stove 3-4 times a week, and it's cooked in oil and it's covered in butter and salt, and so that would be my version of crack. Uh, is homemade popcorn. I will still have it from time to time, but I actually will plan for it.
Right.
So if I know that I'm going to have some popcorn tonight, I actually calorie count adjust during the course of the day, and then I give myself an appropriate size of popcorn, versus the giant vat of popcorn that I really want to have.
The movie
Uh,
tub in which you need to take a second mortgage out
yeah,
for.
yeah, the movie tub, which is mine and the rest
Yeah.
of the. get another one. Yeah, that would be the one challenge. So yeah, when I make that, the rest of the family still loves it. So I do still make it, but I have to regulate that one pretty closely. So that one's probably the biggest challenge is that sort of a snack thing.
And I know that this may sound heretical, but the air pop with no butter is not an option. Is that correct?
Oh no, no, no. That's like New York pizza. It doesn't even count. That's not
as,
enough.
as
Yeah,
I would tell somebody, it's not worth the calories. That's basically what that
yeah,
boils down to, is it's not worth the
yeah,
calories.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when we started, you said that you're down to about 260. Is that correct?
No, right now I'm 232.
232. Okay,
Yeah,
you started tracking at 260. You're down to
right.
232, and
Yeah,
you said specifically that you have farther to go.
yeah.
So the big question always is, what is farther to go for you?
Sure. Yeah, for me, it'll be somewhere between 185 and 195, because that was a weight that I was very comfortable at when I was most active.
Hmm.
So it'll be around there, and just see how I feel at that particular point in time.
Okay, and just keep doing the same thing that you're doing now
Yeah.
to get there.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Have you thought of anything that you're going to do to celebrate when you hit that 100-pound mark? That's always a big that's always a
Um,
big milestone.
no, that's a great question. I will have to think about that a little bit more. No,
Yeah.
I don't have anything in mind because, like that's what I was saying before. I actually was never the numbers guy. So,
Right.
but that's coming up, I guess, and I'll have to think about something fun there. What do you suggest?
You know what? It's one of those things. It's finding something fun to do, rewarding yourself in another way. And I think it's one of those things to remind yourself that, I think as a society and as a culture, we reward ourselves with food a lot. I mean, we talk
Yeah.
about birthdays, we talk about Christmas, we talk about Thanksgiving, we talk about taking ourselves out to dinner when we accomplish a goal or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's finding that other thing that's just as fun. That's a special treat, to reward ourselves, when we accomplish those goals. And I think it's important to celebrate those goals, because I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not a numbers person, but that's a big deal. That's a huge deal, and it's exciting thing to accomplish. And so, yeah, I mean, definitely find something fun, and take your wife along, and just make a real big celebration out of it. So,
All
um,
right.
so kind of to wrap things up, advice. I mean, I think you talked a lot about that you know taking this little by little is a great piece of advice. But as someone who has gone through this, as someone who has struggled through this, what advice would you leave for somebody, um specifically, who wants to start on this kind of a journey?
Sure. So I would say always remember the reason why. So when you're having tough times or when it's not going right, you got to remember your reason why you're doing it in the first place, and that would be my answer. No matter what we're talking, no matter what the big sort of transformation or changes that you're wanting to make, remember your reason why. Yeah, I have three daughters. I want to walk them all down the aisle. That's a strong reason why. I've got four kids. I want to be able to see my grandkids. I want to be able to play with them. I want to do stuff with them where I'm not just sitting on the couch watching them. That's a reason why. So I would have that as my particular piece of advice. Make sure you've got a good, strong, powerful reason why, and remember it on those days and those times where it's not going well. I've done that. Like I said, I'm only walking. That's my thing that I'm doing right now. But if I'm sitting around and feeling kind of like I just want to skip it today, I'm like, well, I want to be able to walk my daughters down the aisle, so I can go take a walk right now. So always remember your reason why you're doing it, because you're not going to see the result tomorrow, but you're going to know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us tonight. I think this
You're
is
welcome.
really good. I think it's good to kind of remember that. And I think that, a lot of figuring out as you go through it, and remembering you can go step by step. And as long as you've got that long range goal in front of you is going to be the thing that keeps you going. So good luck, keep us posted. And I appreciate you taking the time, and it'll be exciting to see you accomplish this. I know you're going to accomplish it. I know
I
you're
will.
going to accomplish it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's already done. I'm just waiting to get there.
Exactly. It's just your body meeting
Yeah.
your mind where it's already gotten, where it's
Yep,
already
that's
gotten.
right.
Great.
Yep. Well,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Thanks. It was
Have a
great.
great day. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.